It happened just a few months ago. I was in my early 30s, working late as a freelance graphic designer in my little apartment. The rain was pounding outside, and I thought it would be a nice backdrop to finish my last deadline. The glow from my computer felt cozy at first. Then I heard it. At first, it was faint, just a soft tapping. I thought it was the rain hitting the window. I brushed it off. I wanted to stay focused. But the tapping turned louder. It began to nag at me. I glanced at the window. The rain was heavy, but something else was tapping, too. Maybe it was the branches outside. I told myself to relax. I was tired, and my mind was playing tricks. I plugged away at my work, but the sound kept interrupting me. That's when the lights started flickering. I didn't think much of it at first, just a surge from the storm, I assumed. But then they flickered again, and I could feel my heart racing. I swiveled around in my chair, catching something in my peripheral vision, maybe a shadow passing outside. I turned back, but there was nothing there. Just the rain. I rubbed my eyes. Then my phone buzzed, and I saw a new message. Oddly, it was blank. I felt a chill creep down my spine. I tried to convince myself it was just a glitch. I didn't want to think too hard about it, but the tension grew as the night lingered. The tapping gradually changed. It was like whispers now, almost like they were calling my name. I felt my breath catch. I leaned closer to the window, peering outside for an explanation. My heart raced faster. What could it be? I wondered if someone was playing a sick prank. I looked out again, into the empty street lit by the rain. The silence turned thick, and I felt a chill despite the heat being on. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently this time. I could have sworn I heard my name softly echoing from somewhere. Liam, it called. My skin prickled at the sound. I tried to shove the thoughts away. I knew I was home alone. Then everything stopped. The tapping, the whispers, the flickering. I was wrapped in silence. The shadows seemed to stretch around me, closing in. I felt frozen in place, paralyzed. I gathered the bravery to check the circuit breaker or anything else that could help. As I stood up, something brushed against my neck. I spun around, but there was nothing in sight. I felt like I wasn't alone anymore, and I couldn't explain it. My heart raced as I took slow steps towards the doorway, unsure what I would find. The silence drummed in my ears, and the shadows danced, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My mind raced with questions. What had really happened that night? I still can't figure it out. I think about it often, and it leaves me with uneasy thoughts every time the rain falls. The following day, I felt exhausted. I barely slept, tossing and turning, replaying the events in my mind. I had no answers, just a growing sense of dread. I decided I needed a distraction. Maybe a walk might clear my head. I stepped outside into the chilly air. The rain had stopped, but the sidewalks glistened. I walked for a while, trying to shake off the heaviness, but my mind kept drifting back to the night before. The whispers, the tapping, what had that been? I turned the corner and noticed a small cafe. It looked inviting. I ordered a coffee and sat in the back, hoping the warmth would ease my anxiety. As I stirred the cream into my cup, my phone buzzed again. I looked down, hardly expecting anything. To my surprise, it was another blank message. My stomach dropped. I felt a mix of confusion and paranoia. Who was sending these messages? I opened my contacts, hesitating on whether I should text someone or just ignore it. I decided to let it go. But then, an idea struck me. I remembered my friend Sarah. She was into the unusual, always talking about ghosts and the supernatural. Maybe she'd have some insight. I typed out a message, explaining everything, even the strange texts. I hit send and took a sip of my coffee, bracing for her reaction. Just as I set my cup down, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and froze. It wasn't a response from Sarah that stared back at me. Instead, it was a photo. My heart raced at what I saw. It was taken from outside my apartment window, a blurry figure standing in the pouring rain. I felt a knot form in my stomach. How could anyone have taken this from my window? I quickly glanced around the cafe, heat creeping into my cheeks. Did anyone see this? The waitress went about her task, oblivious, but I couldn't shake the paranoia that someone was watching me here too. I shot Sarah a frantic message. I just got a photo taken from my window. I think someone is outside. I barely put my phone down before it buzzed with a reply. Come over. We can figure this out. I took a deep breath, standing up. I needed clarity, someone to help make sense of my fear. I hurried to my car, my mind racing. What if someone was really watching me? What if the tapping and whispers weren't just in my head? On the way to Sarah's, the road felt longer, shadows blending into the trees. I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. I glanced in my rearview mirror and swore I saw a figure behind me, but when I looked again, it was gone. Once I reached her place, I knocked on the door, my heart pounding. Sarah swung it open with a grin, but her smile faded when she saw my face. You look like you've seen a ghost. Something is happening. I'm scared, I confessed. That's when I heard a soft tapping, coming from behind me. I turned, and my stomach dropped. There was no one there. But the tapping continued, clearer now, almost insistent. I felt my heart begin to race again as I stepped back, bumping into Sarah. What is that? I whispered. Sarah's eyes widened. Oh no. Not again. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, disoriented. A faint light flickered in the room. I blinked, trying to remember what happened. Sarah was gone. In her place, shadows danced on the walls, moving as if they had a life of their own. The silence felt heavy, smothering. The tapping had stopped, replaced by the soft hum of an old radiator. I checked my phone. It was dead. Panic set in. How long had I been out? I stumbled to my feet, scanning the room, whispering Sarah's name, but no answer came back. The flickering light caught my attention again. It was coming from the kitchen. With every step I took, my body felt heavier, as if the air thickened with dread. I took a deep breath and made my way toward the sound. As I approached, I could see the kitchen light swinging like a pendulum, casting eerie shadows around the space. Just as I was about to step inside, I heard a scraping sound, sharp and unnerving. I froze, heart racing. Sarah? I called out, voice shaky. No reply, just that eerie silence. I edged closer to the kitchen doorway, peering around the frame. That's when I saw it, a figure, slightly hunched over the counter, obscured by the dim light. My breath caught in my throat. It was another silhouette, mimicking the one in the photo earlier. Get out! I shouted, but the figure didn't move. My instincts screamed danger. I turned to run, but a voice echoed in my mind, urging me to stay and confront this thing. With shaking legs, I took a step forward instead. The figure finally turned, revealing a face barely illuminated. It wasn't Sarah. I couldn't make out who it was, but the smile that parted their lips sent chills down my spine. Why are you here? I breathed, clenching my fists. There was no answer, just that same cold smile growing wider. Suddenly, the kitchen door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, panic flooding me. I was trapped. My eyes darted back to the figure, which now stood straight, an unnatural stillness enveloping the room. Then I noticed the tools on the counter, the knife set, the oddly placed canister, and the bloodied cloth on the floor. My stomach churned. I stumbled backward, but the figure stepped forward, blocking my way. I needed to think fast. I glanced around for an exit. The back door was an option, but would I make it before they reached me? Just when I thought I'd be stuck in that nightmare forever, I remembered my phone. I dashed back toward the living room, searching for my purse. That's when I noticed another flashing light. On Sarah's phone, she had dropped it. I reached it and my heart raced again, but this time it was Hope. I picked it up, but the screen didn't show messages, it was a video. I pressed play with trembling fingers. My breath caught when I saw it: Sarah, sitting in my living room, holding her phone earlier that day. In the background, the tapping was clear, and then a shadow blurred past behind her. That's when I heard it again, the tapping. I looked up, and the figure was gone. Confusion took hold. Where had they gone? And was Sarah safe? Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and I felt a change in the air. I turned, and the figure reappeared, closer this time, and the door behind me creaked slowly open. My heart was pounding. Someone or something was inside the house with me. As I stood frozen, a grotesque smile entrenched on the figure's face, my mind raced. The door creaked open wider, and an ominous gust of wind surged through the house, flicking papers off the counter and sending chills down my spine. I backed away, heart thudding in my chest. From the shadows, I could hear the soft sound of water dripping, like a faucet left open somewhere in the house. I strained my ears. It was wrong, too deliberate, too calculated. My fear morphed into anger at the figure, who still stood there, unmoving, but now with an almost playful air about them. "Who are you?" I shouted again, my voice shaky but louder this time. "Who am I?" They echoed, mimicking my words with a sing-song tone. The light flickered above me, and the whole house felt like it was breathing. I glanced back at Sarah's phone, still playing the video, her face eerily illuminated. But a flash of movement caught my attention again. The figure stretched out a finger, pointing toward the living room. I followed the gesture, my heart racing. What were they trying to show me? "Come play, it's fun," they said, their voice slipping into a low murmur that felt oddly magnetic. I felt torn between running and staying. But then, I heard a muffled cry, faint but unmistakable. It came from the other side of the house. My blood ran cold. "Sarah?" I rasped. Suddenly, the figure dashed forward, blocking my view. I recoiled, but they let out an eerie laugh, one that sent shivers through me. I turned and bolted toward the door, adrenaline surging. I yanked it open and sprinted into the rain-soaked hallway. The noise outside was deafening, a torrential downpour mixed with the unrelenting wind. I couldn't think clearly. My shoes splashed in the puddles that formed beneath the growing darkness, but I couldn't risk looking back into the house, not now. "Sarah!" I screamed again, searching desperately. I needed to find her, to get away from this nightmare. I reached the living room, my heart lurching at the sight. Everything was in disarray. The furniture was upturned, like a chaotic storm had passed through. I scanned the room for any signs of her when I saw an open window, the rain beating against the floorboards. I rushed to the window and peered outside. The garden was swallowed by darkness, but among the trees, a figure was standing there. It looked like Sarah, but something felt off. She was motionless, lost in the shadows, her hair plastered to her face. "Sarah!" I called, reaching out for her. My heart ached with hope and fear. Then, the door slammed shut behind me. The sound echoed through the house, and I turned around to see the figure from the kitchen standing there once more, now with an even wider grin. "Now you'll join us," they said, voice dripping with menace. In a moment of instinct, I lunged back toward the window, ready to escape. But just as I was about to leap, I felt a hand on my shoulder. A cold grip that felt like ice. Before I could scream, the lights flickered again and everything went dark. When the darkness enveloped me, the first thing I felt was the cold stare of the figure behind me. I froze, my breathing shallow. Panic surged in waves, and in that instant, I thought of Sarah. She had to be out there somewhere, but could I let myself be swallowed by this darkness? Then, the lights flickered back on, revealing the living room bathed in a sickly glow. But the figure was gone. My shoulders relaxed slightly. Was it possible they had just vanished? I took a quick look around. Nothing seemed to have changed, but I could feel the tension hanging heavy in the air. I had to find Sarah. I turned away from the window and began moving through the house. Sarah? I called out, trying to keep my voice steady, but it came out as a whisper. Each step I took felt like wading through thick mud. I needed to reach the dining room. If she was still in the house, that was the last place I hadn't looked. As I navigated the hallway, I heard it again, a faint whisper, almost like a child's giggle mixed with a hiss. It echoed against the damp walls, teasing just out of reach. Sarah? I tried again, the tension tightening in my chest. I stepped into the dining room. The table was cluttered, chairs tipped over as if someone had been pushed aside in a hurry. Then, something caught my eye. On the floor lay a single shoe. Not just any shoe, it was Sarah's favorite pair. My heart raced again. I knelt down to pick it up, feeling the tension shift around me. Then I heard footsteps. Soft but deliberate, they echoed from the kitchen. I stood up, my heart pounding a rapid rhythm against my ribcage. I made my way cautiously toward the sound, each step deliberate. Whatever was in this house wanted something, but I had no clue what it might be. As I reached the threshold of the kitchen, I glanced back toward the entrance, half fearing the figure would emerge again. The room was dark, only faintly illuminated by the streetlight outside breaking through the rain-soaked window. I stepped inside, the air feeling thick. And then I saw at the kitchen door, slightly ajar. I approached slowly, listening. That dripping sound was louder now, like a tap left running. Or was something else slowly leaking out into the room? I pushed the door open, and a wave of cold air rushed past me. I peered into the dark hallway beyond. Just then, the lights flickered once more, illuminating a shadow darting past the doorway. I gasped, adrenaline flooding through my veins. Was that Sarah? I took a few cautious steps forward, ready to call her name again. That's when I noticed a bloody handprint smeared on the wall just inside the kitchen. My stomach twisted as questions raced through my mind. Where was Sarah, and who or what had been in our home? I reached for my phone in my pocket, hoping for a glimmer of light. I needed to call for help, but then I heard the whisper again, clearer this time. Come find me. It drifted from somewhere deep within the house. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I was rooted in place. I had to know what it meant. I took a deep breath, and despite the icy fear gripping my heart, I stepped deeper into the darkness, following the voice that lured me in. The hallway stretched before me, shadows flickering along the damp walls as I ventured further into the unknown. Each step felt as if I were being pulled toward an unseen force, my instincts grappling with the urge to flee. But Sarah, my mind raced at the thought of her. I could still hear that whisper, heavy with urgency. Come find me. The words echoed in my ears like a haunting melody. They led me deeper into the darkness. The handprint on the wall nagged at me, but I pushed the horror aside. I focused instead on finding her. She had to be around here somewhere. I paused just outside a door at the end of the hall. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of light escaping from the gap. The smell of something acrid wafted through, a mix between burnt wood and something else, something metallic. I steeled myself, my hand trembling slightly as I touched the door. It creaked open slowly, a protest against my intrusion. Inside, the room was dim, illuminated only by the flickering light of a single candle. And there, in the center of the room, lay a pile of belongings: Sarah's backpack, her jacket, and more strangely, a child's doll. The doll's face was cracked, its button eyes glinting with a hint of malice, as if it had seen too much. My heart raced. What was this? I stepped closer, wanting to understand what had happened. Just as I reached for Sarah's backpack, the door slammed shut behind me, cutting off the light from the hallway. I spun around, panic flaring again. I pounded on the door, but the wood felt solid against my fists. "Sarah!" I shouted, my voice trembling. Silence answered me, heavy and ominous. I turned back to the candlelight, searching for anything that might explain her absence. That's when I heard it again. The whisper. Only now, it was accompanied by soft giggles. The sound was filled with a strange kind of joy, twisted by the surrounding darkness. Each laugh cut through me, raising the hairs on the back of my neck. The voice was not only calling me, it was beckoning. "Come play with us." The candle flickered, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. I felt a shift in the air, a weight pressing down on my chest. Who was us? I was unprepared for whatever was happening, and the idea of facing more than I had already encountered frightened me. Then, from the corner of the room, a figure emerged, slight and indistinct, with hair cascading over its face. I stilled, my breath hitching in my throat. The pale shape moved closer, and my blood ran cold. "Sarah." The name escaped my lips in a frantic whisper. The figure stopped before me. I could only see the outline now, but my heart dropped at the expression that flickered over that shadowy face. It wasn't her. Not fully. I backed away slowly, dread washing over me. This was a trap. Whoever had lured me here wasn't finished. Something sinister lingered in the air, and I realized with horror I wasn't meant to find Sarah. I was meant to join her. The candle sputtered, and darkness rushed in again, swallowing the light whole. In the chaos, I felt a cold grip on my wrist, pulling me backward. I screamed, but the sound faded into the shadows. I struggled against the unseen force, panic clawing at my throat. I had to get out. I had to escape. But as I wrenched free from its grasp, a sudden silence replaced the chaos. I blinked into nothingness. Just like that, the whisper stopped. The giggles faded. I stood alone in the dim room, the weight of fear now matched by uncertainty. What was happening to me? I needed to find a way out, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was no longer alone. And then everything went dark once again. The silence was thick. It pressed against me, heavy and suffocating, as if the darkness around me were alive. I strained my ears, hoping to hear anything to pull me back to reality. But all I got was the distant sound of rain tapping against the roof. Slowly, I let my eyes adjust. I was still in that cramped room, surrounded by shadows that blurred the edges of my fears. I took a deep breath, tasting the metallic tang of fear on my tongue. I couldn't let it grip me. Not now. I needed to escape. Determined, I turned toward the far wall, searching for a way out. My hands glided over the cold, damp surface, fingers brushing against the rough texture. Then I froze. Something caught my attention, a faint outline of a door that I hadn't noticed before, concealed behind a stack of old crates. My heart raced again, this time with a spark of hope. I approached it cautiously, glancing over my shoulder as if something might leap out from the darkness. I pulled the crates aside, wincing at the sound they made against the floor. I could already imagine eyes watching me, a predator waiting for my moment of vulnerability. The door was small and weathered, the knob rusty and uninviting. I grasped it tightly, terrified of what lay beyond. I gave it a turn, and it creaked open just enough for me to squeeze through. A rush of cool air greeted me, and I found myself in a narrow, dim corridor. What was this place? I stepped forward, each footfall muffled by the thick layers of dust. Dim light flickered from an overhead bulb, revealing more doors along the sides. I could hear the rain pounding against the roof above, its rhythm almost soothing compared to the chaos I had just escaped. But that sense of comfort faded as quickly as it came. I could feel the oppressive weight of something watching me from the shadows. I turned my head, expecting to see nothing. Just the boxes and crooked walls. Yet, my instinct screamed that I wasn't alone. Then I heard a soft shuffling sound from behind one of the doors to my left. I froze, my heart racing again. I couldn't ignore it. I approached the door, my hand hovering over the knob. I didn't want to, but what if it was Sarah? What if she was trapped, too? I gripped the knob and turned it slowly, the latch reluctantly disengaging. The door swung open to reveal a room that looked strangely familiar. Old photographs hung on the walls, pictures of children, their faces twisted in odd expressions, their eyes too wide. In the center of the room, a small table was strewn with toys, but they weren't innocent. They were the dolls I had found before. Their eyes seemed to follow me as I stepped inside. That was when I saw a figure darting past the corner of the room. My breath hitched, and dread filled my chest. I was sure something had moved. Something alive. Sarah. I called again, my voice trembling. But instead of an answer, I was met with a shriek, a shrill sound that pierced the silence. It echoed throughout the room, sending chills racing down my spine. The door slammed shut behind me, sealing me inside. I was trapped. Panic surged through my veins as the darkness closed in, and the shadows seemed to blend together, coming alive. I couldn't escape whatever was hunting me. And that's when I realized I had stumbled into its lair. I pounded on the door, desperation clawing at my throat. But a new sound broke through the chaos, a low, sinister laughter that reverberated off the walls. They were here, and they were waiting for me. I couldn't stay here. I had to move. But every instinct screamed for me to turn back. The laughter grew louder, wrapping around me like a serpent squeezing tighter. What had I unleashed? I needed to find a way out, but now I had to outrun not just the shadows, but a presence that had already taken far too much from me. My heart thudded in my chest as I scanned the room, desperate for an escape route. It felt like the walls were narrowing, closing in on me. I backed away from the door, pacing frantically. The laughter echoed again, twisting in its intensity a mocking whisper that sent shivers down my spine. Something wanted me here. I had to think. The only other door in the room was the way I had come in. My eyes darted to the corners, searching for a window, for any way out. But there was nothing, just the flickering light overhead and the creeping shadows that seemed to dance and breathe. Then I spotted a small, cracked mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. I moved toward it, hoping for a glimpse of what lurked behind me. But when I leaned closer, the glass didn't reflect my face. Instead, it showed the back of the room empty, with only a hint of movement in the shadowy depths. Fear gripped me as I pulled back, the laughter morphing into a series of soft, mocking claps. What was this place? I had to get out. I spun on my heel, aiming for the door, when a sudden crash echoed from somewhere beyond the corridor. The sound jolted me. My instincts kicked in, and I crouched low, trying to blend in with the shadows. Whoever or whatever was behind that noise would be my next problem. I edged toward the door, hands trembling as I reached for the knob. Just before I touched it, a soft voice whispered my name. Help! It was faint, barely audible over the rain and the pounding in my ears. It sounded like Sarah. I hesitated. Was it really her? Or a trick of the darkness? The last thing I wanted was to draw attention to myself if it was a trap. Sarah? I whispered back, a thread of hope weaving through my fear. Silence settled in again, but then I heard a soft scraping sound, like nails dragging across the floor. My heart raced again. Geared by a blend of hope and terror, I decided to take a risk. With renewed determination, I threw open the door and slipped into the corridor. The flickering light did little to illuminate my path, but I could hear the soft sounds of something moving. I pressed on, adrenaline coursing through me. Whoever was there, whether it was Sarah or something worse, I needed to know. The scraping grew louder, echoing off the walls like someone was crawling toward me. My breath hitched, but I kept going. As I turned the corner, I spotted a series of doors, each seeming just as ominous as the last. I needed to figure out which one housed Sarah or, better yet, the way out. Just then, my eyes caught movement at the far end of the corridor. A figure stood still, swathed in shadows, before it slipped behind another door. I felt sick. I wasn't alone. I rushed to the door the figure had vanished through, my heart racing. The knob turned easily, and I opened it wide, ready to confront whatever waited inside. I stepped through, and the instantly suffocating darkness ripped away the sense of direction I thought I had. I was lost. And that's when I heard it again, my name, softly beckoning from the depths of the void. I couldn't turn back now. Not when Sarah needed me. But as the shadows thickened and something brushed against my arm, a touch so cold it felt like death, I knew I was running out of time. The darkness felt alive, pulsing as I stood in that room, frozen. I strained to listen for Sarah's voice again, but all I heard was the relentless drip of water from some unseen source, mingling with my own ragged breaths. Slowly, I forced myself to move deeper into the void. Each step felt weighted, as if the shadows were reaching out to pull me back. I caught sight of a faint glow ahead, a light flickering from a crack beneath another door. As I neared it, I heard the soft sound of someone mumbling. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to catch the words. "Help me." It was unmistakably Sarah. My heart leapt, but alongside it came a fresh wave of dread. What lay on the other side? I turned the knob and pushed the door open. The light spilled out, illuminating a cramped room with peeling wallpaper and a single, dim bulb hanging by a cord. My gaze darted around, desperate for Sarah. But instead of her, I saw something else. A figure hunched over, its back facing me. I could see its ragged clothing and the way it rocked slightly back and forth. "Sarah?" I called hesitantly. It turned slowly, and my blood ran cold. The face that stared back at me was not my friend's. It was gaunt, eyes sunken and hollow, with a twisted smile that sent a chill through my spine. I stumbled back, an instinctual desire to flee surging through me. "Where is she?" I cried, my voice cracking. My heart raced, pounding in my ears like a drum. The figure didn't respond, but its smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp, too long. I didn't wait. I slammed the door shut and ran back into the corridor, panic clawing at my throat. The laughter returned, echoing around me, wrapping itself around my mind. I rushed past the other doors, feeling like everyone was a trap. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging me into complete darkness. I skidded to a stop, the air thick with the smell of damp and mildew. I could hear something behind me, a low, guttural sound, like it was breathing heavily. With no other choice, I kept moving, my hands reaching out to feel the walls. I eventually found another door, feeling for the handle before throwing it open. The room beyond was different. It felt colder, almost impossibly so. As I stepped in, I caught sight of what looked like an old trunk in the corner. Something compelled me to approach it, though every instinct told me to run. I hesitated at its edge. Glossy and dark, it looked out of place, an invitation to something wrong. My heart pounded as I reached for the lid. "What's inside?" I whispered to myself. But before I could open it, the door slammed shut behind me. I whirled around, dread pooling in my stomach. I was trapped. Then the trunk started to glow, pulsating faintly, and I heard it again. Help this time, it wasn't Sarah's voice. It was darker, more insistent. In that moment, the realization crashed over me, whatever was in that trunk wanted out. I was not alone, and I had made a grave mistake. My heart hammered against my ribs as the feeble glow from the trunk cast eerie shadows across the room. The voice echoed again, more insistent this time, wrapping around me like a vice. Help! Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. I struggled to think through the chaos that swirled inside my mind. Whatever was inside the trunk was deeply malevolent, and the shadows tossed around the room almost seemed to shift in anticipation. "Get away from me!" I shouted, my voice trembling, though I wasn't sure if the trunk even had ears or if it could hear, let alone understand. But another wave of fear washed over me, and I couldn't afford to hesitate any longer. I rushed toward the heavy wooden door, hands fumbling for the knob, but it wouldn't budge. Let me out. Panic surged within me as a heavy thud echoed from the trunk, reinforcing the idea that whatever was hidden there was agitated. The soft sound of the whisper faded, replaced instead by a chorus of laughter, high-pitched and mocking, circling around me, drowning out my thoughts and forming a cacophony that burrowed into my mind. With a surge of desperate energy, I turned and faced the glowing trunk again. Whatever was inside was restless and hungry. I had to choose between confronting it or remaining trapped in the dark, and my gut told me the shadows only wanted to feast on my fear. I rushed toward the trunk, lunging forward with both hands, determined to rip the lid open. I hesitated for a moment before finally grasping the edges firmly and yanking it open. The light surged, almost blinding me, and I braced myself for whatever grotesque thing might escape. At first, there was nothing but dark, swirling mist spilling out like smoke. As the shadows twisted and coiled, a figure emerged, a whirlwind of obscured features and jagged edges. It seemed to pulse with energy, flickering and undulating like a flame in the wind. My breath hitched as I took a step back and steeled myself against the mounting terror. Help! It echoed through the room once more, but this time it morphed, turning into a chilling laugh that was unmistakably Sarah's. It sent shards of ice through my veins. Liam, she sang, her voice wrapping around me. Come play. I stumbled backward, frantic to shake off the dizzying pull. The figure twisted into something akin to a grotesque caricature of her face, mocking me in ways I couldn't begin to comprehend. Everything I feared manifested before me, torn from my reality and woven into a nightmare. Stop! I screamed, shaking my head. This isn't real. But the display of chaos only intensified. The wall groaned, the floor reverberated, and in that moment, I could feel every ounce of darkness pressing against me, its suffocating grip threatening to pull me under. Images erupted through my mind, Sarah's laughter turning to screams, shadows wrapping around her like chains, and the horrific thought that she had already been consumed by whatever foul thing had taken residence in this house. I couldn't let that happen to me. I couldn't become another victim. With adrenaline surging, I ripped my gaze away from the trunk, determination anchoring me back in reality. I dashed toward the door once more, my hands gripping the knob. I had to escape. The chaos swirled, dark figures writhing in pursuit, but instead of surrendering to despair, I pushed the door open with every ounce of strength I had left. The hallway stretched endlessly before me, the oppressive darkness refusing to relent. It felt like something else whispered my name amid the cacophony, but I pushed it aside. All I cared about was finding a way out. Through sheer willpower, I sprinted down the corridor, fleeing the shadows that clawed at my back, pleading for me to turn around and succumb to the dark. Up ahead, I glimpsed light, not just any light, but the inviting sheen of the front door. My heart surged, hope igniting the embers of fear still lurking within. Running hard, I burst through the door, flinging it open with a power I didn't know I possessed. The storm outside greeted me, rain pouring down with renewed fury. I stepped outside, the cold air striking my face like a slap. For a moment, I hesitated, glancing back at the darkness behind me. But fear stung in my chest and drove me forward. I bolted into the storm, my heart racing, willing God above to simply let me be free. As I stumbled away, droplets of rain mixed with the chill of the night. I forced myself to keep moving, seeking the sanctuary of main streets illuminated by flickering streetlights. Glancing back one last time, I felt a chill run down my spine, a shiver of shadow that lingered just beyond the threshold of the doorway I had escaped. I don't know what ultimately happened to Sarah, or what I unleashed that night. Sometimes, in the whisper of the rain, I still hear it, that haunting laugh of a friend lost, and wonder if she is still trapped somewhere in that house, playing with the shadows that took her. I've never returned, too afraid of what might lurk within those walls. I moved to a different city soon after. I try to forget, to drown out the murmur of the rain, but it always finds a way to remind me of choices unmade, specters lingering, and the ambiguity of what lurks just beyond the edge of our vision.